What's up, everybody? This is Karak with ACG, and once again, it's my continuing mission to bring you reviews that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap. And today we're going to cover The Quarry, a third-person narrative horror game by Supermassive. These guys and girls make a Russian oligarch on a family trip look lucky. To set this perspective just for a second, the park's motto is actually, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." That's as creepy as going to kindergarten and seeing "We who are about to die salute you" written in crayon on a cardboard box. But do these guys and gals get the hell out of there? No, they do not. And on the 10th, everybody else can jump in with them, except if you're on the Switch. Supermassive Games returns with this other horror title, this time the spiritual successor to Until Dawn, following along with the members of a small summer camp counseling group who find themselves stuck just one extra day past the end of camp and maybe a bit after their own expiration dates. It's a third-person horror action game in that vein of Man of Medan and their other titles as well. Let's see how it did. First, this video is brought to you by absolutely no one but you if you subscribe and hit the notification bell. We don't do sponsors here, but if I like something, I'm going to tell you. There's no fake ads, no me pretending to actually enjoy something. If you like music and if you're a creator, check out KARAK-ACG at White Bat Audio. This guy puts up a ton of audio that other creators can use. It's basically royalty free. All you have to do is say that you've used his stuff. An amazing guy puts almost all of his stuff up there for you as creators to use and put that product in there. Especially when you have people demanding timestamps for something somebody took 3 hours to make because they don't want to waste an extra 10 seconds. You get KARAK-ACG out there just being like, "Hey man, take all my stuff."
Your charm is infectious. What can I say? I'd subscribe.
Back to your scheduled programming. The Quarry presentation. First, let's put it out there. The game's called The Quarry. It actually takes a while for you to get to that particular spot or actually see or notice those particular things. The game's opening up is a meeting of a summer counselors that decide that it's time to take off for the summer. Relationships are over. The friendships possibly at an end. While The Quarry still doesn't seem to take the highlight moments of Until Dawn and merge them here, it's not exactly an ugly game. In fact, many times it's gorgeous. Waddling around through the center of the abandoned camp as Abssii shows off some really excellent lighting, and that engine there bays everything in this soft use of lighting and color that really nails nostalgia right to the wall from the start. It feels almost a little bit like Life is Strange at those moments. There's also a ton of locations in the game, from the starting moments when a car accident turns into the accidental tourist, or when the characters later decide that the best bet is to rush off into the forest in as many different directions as possible. Each location usually looks a good deal different than the others, or has some unique part to them that's interesting. This is all, of course, aided by the directorial effects that the game uses. Really damned well, too. Like when you pick or choose in the game something and there's this old VCR script that pops up to alert you that you've made a choice, like found footage movies. I dig the design, and I dig that desire to drive home that this is an experiment and that overall look. Sadly, the game does have a number of technical issues. For the first bit, every girl's hair in the game is edged on their body, and they suffer almost a mirage effect, like they're consistently inside a bubble of hot air that's causing the rest of the world to sway and shimmer around them. This is also added to something we saw in Horizon Forbidden West, Aloy and her crossed eyes issue. Every character in this game has a problem with the mocap's vertical capture, resulting in almost everyone in the game not looking at someone, but below them. It's noticeable from the very start in discussions, all the way to characters grabbing items and actually looking down and their eyes completely closed when reading different clues. This means a good deal of the game in which the characters aren't looking at anyone or have the same vacuous stare as somebody in an OnlyFans private session removes a bit of the atmosphere that you would actually like. That tension slightly goes away when no one looks like anybody else is looking them in the eyes. For a game that's hinging on atmosphere and hinging on its presentation, that's a actual big hit. It's something that you will notice. So hopefully me warning you about it will make it a little bit less impactful. Performance-wise, the game runs great from a 1080 Ti to a 3080, though I do have to point out that in some different swings, long pans, and a couple load-ins, there was a bit of stutter. It was noticeable, and even with the adjusted settings all the way down, it definitely popped up from time to time. But what is here doesn't have to be perfect. And despite the issues I'm talking about, noticeable as they are, I dug the look of the Quarry. I dug the actual characters. I do for sure wish the eye thing wasn't so noticeable, as it does bring you out of the story a bit. But the way it's all set up, the uniqueness of the location, and at times almost like some kind of Twilight Zone set of proximities when it comes to where you're traveling, it kept me more interested in it. Even if it was, let's say, perfectly laid out and presented, I would have probably found myself less so. I like the look of it, but it certainly isn't going to win any awards. And of course, winning is about gameplay, and that's what we're going to talk about next. The game starts out insanely quickly. 2 camp counselors are rushing out to get to the camp a day early prior to the summer starting so they can rest up before everyone else gets there. They're driving their Jeep Wagoneer and using a cell phone for directions when, you guessed it, it goes out. And so does their good driving, because in a moment of not paying attention, they hit somebody or something or someone and skew off the road, leading to the game's first QuickTime event as well as its first cartoon intermission. These cartoons are told in a Twilight Zone fashion, each short one describing the mechanics of the game, from QTEs to holding your breath when you're being tracked to weapons use and so on. It feels a little bit different. It definitely doesn't look like the rest of the game, but I bought into it. Regardless of whether you crash or not, you come to a stop, and what follows is a creepy encounter with the darkness, a possible ghost, and the world's worst state trooper ever. Also, some words of advice. If you're traveling, someone's posted a Carnival Freak Show poster on a tree in the middle of the 100-acre wood. I submit to you, it is not Winnie the Pooh who did it. Most likely it's a subspecies of the legendary hobo clowns that have escaped the circus and bred into monsters. Don't just stand around. But that character does, as well as Max, her boyfriend, who's just staring at the truck trying to fix it by looking at it really hard. Laura sees something in the shadowed wilderness and proceeds to go searching the woods. You find out how control works in this moment, third-person view, using your cell phone light to illuminate the forest and try to find the mysterious someone. Also find all manner of creepy items, almost staged in various places, that you can find in this moment. Now, as Laura's exploring, she keeps seeing what she thinks is possibly a person they hit, or a ghost, or something more nefarious. Then randomly, someone whispers coleslaw into her ear. Scratch that. It most likely isn't coleslaw. It's like silence or semblance or something, but without the subtitles on, it was hard to parse. And regardless, if somebody randomly whispered condiments into my ear, it'd be scary as shit. Regardless of that, she gets those getaway sticks clicking and doesn't worry about asking them to clarify themselves, and comes back up, meets her boyfriend and the aforementioned creepy trooper. That's when bad goes to worse, and I'm gonna not spoil the rest for you. At the other end of the stage is now it's the end of summer. Of course, those characters haven't shown up, and you're playing the rest of the group that spent the summer helping out kids, and now it is time to pretty much wrap it all up. As you go and the story blossoms out, you continue to explore. You figure out a couple basic puzzles, you find some clues, miss others, learn each other's secrets, and explore the local area throughout that night. That turns from dangerously rocky and hazardous at night to truly dangerous pretty quickly everywhere. The game hinges somewhat on a relationship system that you track in the game's inventory, as well as finding tarot cards in the game world to give to a fortune teller character that shows up occasionally in the side stories. Think of them as the psychologist from Until Dawn. From a purely gameplay perspective, this is a very simple title, resting mostly on the expected elements of a horror game and the prior titles before it that Supermassive is known for. And that also means their atmosphere needs to be rock solid. Here, it's a bit hit and miss. Sometimes the game has an almost quirky B-movie to it and a great feel to the back and forth of the characters. Other times, it hedges really close to the relationships of those within the group, but that brings up a bit of an issue. Think about it this way. The story and the way it's told, the game is about summer camp, kids leaving the camp, getting stuck for one more day, but the player doesn't know any of that. So the game has to find a way to introduce new information without making all the camp counselors sound like they referred their way through 3 months of letting kids die in the lake because they can't remember shit. They do okay, even though that clumsiness has some hilarious moments, like all the people getting together for the first night ever to play Truth and Dare, or one kid telling the others about the campground's ghost story after 3 months of hanging out, and continued comments about what he's listening to throughout those months that the other characters talk about. The job here is to keep them alive and push that story forward. The story does move forward, keeping them alive, maybe not so much. You have different characters here. Chris is played by David Arquette, the owner of the summer camp. You've got Abigail, played by Ariel Winter. You got Caitlin, who's Brittany Song. You have Emma, played by Halston Sage from Orville, and many others. And hit or miss, they do push the gameplay forward, regardless of a couple technical issues or just delivery issues that you have here. What's cool is the various different ways in which the game parses out its plot means multiple playthroughs will show you various different things. And I'll talk about that also in the fun factor and in the rating. I do want to point out the audio presentation now, though.
My man. Caitlin?
I go where my people need me.
Yeah, okay. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm in. Mr. Hackett seemed pretty insistent we stay in the lodge.
He was just trying to freak us out, you know? Like one of Ryan's stupid ghost stories.
Why would he want to scare us?
Ryan, what if it's Jacob or Emma?
What if it's not?
Be careful.
While there are a couple technical issues with the voices and cuts, I actually dug the cast. And here's why it works for me. It's not AAA writing, it's not even AA a lot of the time, hedging on trying to be young but also informative, and at the same time not having a lot of detail, which actually is probably pretty difficult. And some characters do say or do stuff that feels a bit like someone 50-year-old is writing someone who's 17 years old by talking to somebody about what it was like when they were 30 years old. Enough vocal fry in this game for like 20 Seth Rogans as well. But I actually found myself liking some of these characters. I found myself following along with what they were doing and understanding exactly where they were coming from. Some is a little too on the nose, though. You definitely will notice that. Also, in the tense moments, sometimes characters will freeze up and stutter and stymie. And if you've ever been with anybody who is truly terrified, that is actually exactly how it works. The brain and the mouth can completely either shut off or you'll get somebody babbling about things that make no sense. I did like that. It may not make the presentation absolutely sing and move perfectly forward, but as a gameplay device, it actually helped out because as you're trying to ask questions, that character's just breathing hard and stuttering, and you're like, seriously, I need to know what the hell happened. When it comes to music, the game uses both licensed track as well as solid, emotive, and suspenseful in-game tracks that work well both sides. I dug it. No complaints there. If you plan to stream this game, though, there's a streamer mode. I suggest you turn it on because many of the major cutscenes have what would be considered fully licensed music, and there's absolutely no way you're going to be able to stream that without getting a copyright hit. I do want to say that while those moments can definitely feel a bit forced, it still worked for me. I liked their inclusion. Moving away from music to sound, because I want to hit this and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the bugs I saw. Sound, it's not bad either. They do a good job with the environmental as well as some Foley work, especially when you're exploring what adds up to be just a Creep Factor 5 kind of cabin that you're exploring and some kind of weird something in the woods you're following. You're just moving around through this game and it's really got a cinematic slant to it. That aspect is something that you pick up right away. It's never reacting to the surround sound in a way that saves your life. That's not what the game's about. The game knows what it is. It's a narrative piece with gameplay and so forth to move the story forward. And the thickness in that cinematic feel to the actual space itself works to add on to the atmosphere. I liked it. But is liking love? Let's talk about fun factor. I liked the dark anthology games a little bit, some of them more than others. To a lesser extent, I had some issues with Until Dawn, but actually really enjoyed it. The Quarry does have a number of these small technical issues that the team just seems impossibly stymied by. However, there were moments in the Quarry I liked better than the previous games. Maybe not Until Dawn, but certainly the Man of Medan stuff. The title lets the scary out pretty quickly and keeps you investigating and moving on and wondering exactly what's up. It doesn't get too lost in some of the weird, quirky, supernatural stuff that we did also see in the Dark Anthology series. Also, I kept playing it and noticed a couple things that I love. There's a part where a character that I felt almost took the exact direction they had done before in a prior playthrough, but then I watched closer and saw something completely different happen that was just interspaced in there, maybe 5, maybe 10 seconds, and it was awesome because in that couple seconds, I actually picked up a good deal more about the story and plotline, and in particular, that character. Also, when you beat the game, you get the ability to save some characters in the story when they die, like here's a bonus for winning it. There's also a full-on movie mode, which is awesome. It lets you choose to have all the characters live or die, as well as turn horrendous levels of gore on. And these extra modes are actually a huge boon to this title, where a player might just want to see how it all comes together passively after a couple walkthroughs. There's also a multiplayer mode that's sadly been pushed back until after the game releases. This sucks, as this kind of thing could have set up some hilarious Discord moments, and in the movie modes there are actually completely different elements as well that you can track, which makes it less of a we just are doing the cutscenes only kind of thing, and more of a interactive movie, which I actually liked. And it also shows that the Quarry, even though it is somewhat like their other titles, is trying to do a couple things different here. And yes, they have talked about multiple endings here, over 100 endings, and we all know how that's going to pan out. Sometimes it's just going to be like, hey, look, man, this poster's over here on this wall and not this wall. But I did see some stuff, as I said, in the gameplay through different walkthroughs that I don't even really know why they showed up, but there was certainly something different there, and that was actually awesome. So the idea to continue to play through it, which I've done 3 times, is very cool. The only thing that was impacted by the fun factor is the bugs, as I said before. For example, there's a part where you're talking to somebody and you're stuck in the woods in your vehicle and you're like, there is no way we're getting out of here unless we teleport, and that's exactly what happens. The next bit of the cutscene shows you suddenly on the road, even though it appears to be an instant jump. This actually occurs 2 or 3 other times in the game as well. And even if it's to try to hint to something, it doesn't really do the greatest job. As you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never touch it again rating system. This is a difficult one to review. I like it better than almost all of the Dark Anthology series, even though a couple of those had some really good stories, and I would say at times better cutting of the scenes and a few less technical difficulties. I don't like it as much as Until Dawn, but that means the Until Dawn that we're playing now, which is a completely patched up one versus what we got when it first got released, which had a lot of technical problems in and of its own. This game's a little bit on the high price side as well, $59.99. However, the game takes almost 10 hours to get through a single time, and you will want to do multiple playthroughs because there is a lot that changes up, at least in the first 2 or 3. Plus, you have the movie mode, you've got the co-op mode, you've got the multiplayer mode, and that ends up being a title that I think just squeaks into the buy if you're into this kind. I certainly don't feel ripped off by it. I'm going to give away a copy, as you guys know, to somebody who's a watcher. I firmly believe that this squeaks in right there at the buy rating, but I can see why some people will not feel that way. Sort of a par for the course when it comes to horror games. So I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, make sure to hit notify all. We have some huge stuff. As you guys know, the podcast has been kicking it off. Well over 1,000 watchers for each one, and then another 30 to 50,000 people listening or watching later. We've done a ton of those, and we're going to be doing the Xbox events. We're going to be doing the Summer State of Play, or what is that? No, Summerfest. Yeah, the Summerfest. We're going to be doing that as well. Going to have a ton of streams this week alone and next week. And, of course, more reviews from me. Peace out. I hope you guys have an amazing week.